Let's talk about Fight for It number 10. I viewed the show via the internet. I was not there, but let me tell you that the look and the feel and the sound of it coming through my speakers, watching it on Facebook and YouTube, so they had a dual stream. I thought that both were clean. Audio was great. Talking about the people, the sounds coming through, the excitement. You know, when I really talk about that feel, I could really feel the people, the intensity. Even though I'm watching it remotely, I got a good sense about what might have been going down inside that building based on the responses of the people that were there. I can't give you a good feel in terms of how many people were there, but it looked like a very decent crowd, especially when you have limitations during the COVID era. I think that a lot of the excitement came, I think you got it in every match, but I think a lot of it came from having the kids on the program. And I think Trevor and Dylan, the commentators, really talked about this a lot, that some of these kids were setting the bar and setting a very high bar for the adults to follow. And I think that the adults in a lot of these fights, they responded very well. I was impressed. I thought that the show was matched very well in terms of the skill levels of where every fighter is. The camera angles were super clean, super clean. Sometimes you can have, like when you have multiple angles, you can have one camera that's too far away. You can have a camera that's zoomed all the way in, that's blurry, and the other camera's great, and it makes for a horrible contrast. I thought the colors came through very well. I thought they did everything well in terms of the look, the feel, the sound of the show. The stream was super stable. You have to keep in mind that this thing went on for almost 8 hours. Almost 8 hours. And I didn't see any freezing or a drop in audio on either platform, YouTube or Facebook. You know, you got to keep in mind that no one just loads up a lot of gear on a daily basis and goes out and just practices their entire show. You know, they may practice certain elements and nuances, but you cannot, and I'm saying this as a fight coach, you cannot train for every aspect of the fight, of the event, of the show. There's always little subtleties that you have to be ready to adapt to and make changes on the fly. And I thought they did that very well. And from being a guy who's, you know, worked cage side, being a guy who's been behind the scenes, I have total and mad appreciation for that ability to adapt. Could things go differently? Are there things that, you know, that I would like to see? Absolutely, you know, but I think everyone can say that from their perspective in terms of, you know, whether they're a fan of the show, whether they're a fighter, a manager, or a competitor. You know, you can say, hey, these are things I would have done that would have been better. So anybody can talk, you know, in hindsight. The fights themselves, hard to predict. Very hard to predict. So I end up writing a few articles for some of the matchups. And to create a little buzz and interest, I was asked to pick winners. And I think I was something like 6-1 on the night. In other words, I had 6 wins, 6 losses, and 1 draw. And I would say this, that of my 6 losses, I would say 3 of them, I am absolutely certain that my guy, my original pick, was winning the fight. He was winning the fight. And then boom, just like that, something happened. And I was like, what? And that actually makes me proud. That means that the game is elevating, leveling up, and that's good. That's not a bad thing at all. It just means that the fights are hard to predict because it's good matchups. So you have to give credit to Marcelo and Leslie and Jonathan and whoever else had some input in terms of making these matches. That's the only way you're going to have an even show. You know, I like this kind of feedback, this kind of metric where I can look and say, okay, I went 6-6, and I'm usually better than that on a local level. 6-6 is what I do for UFC show. because that's information I don't know. This is a lot of people who I do know, I'm aware of. I know the teams. So to go 6-6 means that there's a lot of things changing, which is good. Speaking of changes, Modern Warrior MMA, Keith Rockstar Richardson, they go undefeated on the night in kickboxing. What? So you have to keep in mind, like, the only interaction I've had with this team over the years is in MMA. Then I see them come out and they're undefeated in kickboxing in one night. Now I know they've done some other stuff like bare knuckle boxing and all kinds of things that they participate in, jiu-jitsu and all that. But to see them come out and have clear results, they had a clear path, a clear mind, and they had clear results. So shout out to Modern Warrior MMA. Also shout out to How You Stand MMA. They went 2-0 on the night. I guess they had one fight drop off. And Moxinger and Copa was just my favorite fight. I had so much more invested in that fight from a research point of view. So even though there were other fights that had better endings, or they ended quickly or whatever, and there was a little bit more excitement, I was just so much more invested in this fight from the tactical point of view. If you think about your favorite fight from, say, the UFC, for me, fights in the UFC that Moxinger and Copa mirrored, which are like my favorite fights, would have been close to Shogun Rua taking on Lyoto Machida. And if you remember, Machida and Rua, they were so delicate in terms of their movements. They were very subtle, very methodical. And yet when they executed at a very high level of, with a dynamic tension, dynamic movement, going for the kill. And that's what Moxinger and Copa look like to me. I'm not going to talk about individual fights. I want to say that we are moving into a new realm of MMA on the local regional circuit. You see more teams that are now COVID prepared. There are guys who are now in the last year who haven't been able to fight anywhere, who've honed their skills, who refined their skills, and now they have a platform to put them on display, and they're coming out and they're letting it all hang out. You saw a lot of fights where there were guys who were winning and there were comebacks, at the last second. You saw guys who went in as the underdog and they turned out to be the big dog in that fight. So we are entering a new realm. It is no longer the status quo. If you think you're part of a major team or a big team or whatever, those team names aren't magical anymore. You're not going to win fights just being associated with those people. You have to work your butt off. So 3 teams that really stood out to me were Atlantic MMA, Matrix MMA, and New Millennium. I thought they did a lot of things well. New Millennium showed up on late notice and put on some impressive displays, in my opinion. Just goes to show what I'm saying about guys being COVID prepared. There are guys in the gyms who are ready. They just need a platform. Matrix MMA picked up a championship, and Atlantic MMA just, in my opinion, they just did a lot of things against other teams that shocked me, and they won fights against better opponents that I thought that might have defeated them in the past, but COVID ready, COVID prepared. It's moved them to another level. There were some nuances in terms of multiple camera angles. I like that. Fan interaction via the streams on Facebook, especially. Fans are really into the comments, and you had all kinds of fans. You look through the comments and you had fighters, you had managers, you had soccer moms. It was absolutely amazing, some of the things they were saying. They had over 10,000 views at the last time I checked. So that was good. I like the little infographics or the infomercials, however you want to word it, in between certain stanzas, where the young lady come on and she talk about fantasy app. She'd say, hey, if you want to fight for us, this is how you get in contact, blah, 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 blah. And another little graphic nuance that I like was that they would show like a ring card girl, and they would have her name in the corner, where I guess, like our social media or something like that. And I thought, man, that's different, and it's almost saying, hey, we're trying to support whatever her goals are beyond this, so if she wants to be some kind of model or whatever, and you see her here, at least that's how I took it. it creates an expansion of every individual, the brand, because the commentators did it whenever they mentioned, so-and-so's fighter is this and he's from team whatever, you're just expanding that team's brand, and their marketing. So I thought it was pretty good, pretty ingenious. Overall, fantastic show. I didn't have any fighters on it, but hey, when things create a balance and normalize again, the Mad Coach will be out there. So look for that, and I'll keep you informed. I am Coach Sess. You've had words with the Mad Coach.